Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the Fat Guys and Friends podcast. As always, joined by my good friend and fellow fat man, Colton Bartholomew. I'm Logan Wenger. Hello, Bart.
Mr. Wang, how are you, good sir?
Good. Today's a big day for us here on the Fat Guys and Friends podcast. Do you want to know why, Bart?
Tell me, Wang.
Because we finally become true to our name on the podcast. It's just been two fat guys talking about sports, but now it's two fat guys and a friend talking about sports. We have my good friend Alex Capacious, aka Peach, joining us. Hello, Peach.
Hey guys, first time, long time.
What do you want to say to people before we chat about the basketball game?
I guess you covered it first. To start off, my name is Peach. A lot of people call me that. I've known Logan since high school and even before then, so we've been good friends for a long time, and I've met Bart a handful of times, and seems like a good guy, and I'm excited to be on the podcast.
I hope I can dispel you of that falsehood, but let's do it.
Well,
Tonight we're doing all basketball. Cleveland forces a Game 6 of the NBA Finals, winning Game 5, 112-97. For the first time in NBA history, a pair of teammates scored 40-plus points in the same game. For the third straight game, Kyrie Irving scores at least 30 points. He goes for 41 points on 17 of 24 shooting. He also had 6 helpers in the game. LeBron James also had 41 points, added on 16 rebounds and 7 assists. On the other side, Klay Thompson was on fire in the first half, but kind of cooled off in the second half. Finished with 37 points in the game. Steph Curry once again had a very quiet game, scoring 25, but didn't really feel like 25. Guys, I am completely and utterly shocked. I said the Cavs shouldn't even show up to the Oracle Arena tonight, but boy was I wrong, and I'm glad I'm wrong. But Bart, I'm not sure if you know this, but we're joined by a prophet on the podcast tonight.
For real?
Alex Capacious predicted at least an 8-point Cavalier win, and that LeBron James would have at least 40 points and 10 rebounds tonight. And you can check the Twitter machine if you don't believe me on that. Peach, what made you predict the big game for LeBron James?
the biggest factor to me was that I couldn't see LeBron having back-to-back games like he had in Game 4. I couldn't see him replicating that poor Game 4 performance where he looked like he just didn't want to be assertive or aggressive and was a little too passive. I couldn't see that happening in back-to-back games. And I was just thinking about how he's responded in the past facing adversity. Where last year in the finals, when Love and Irving were both out, he definitely put the team on his back, averaging about 35 and 12 every game. And I thought to see a similar performance there. And I also thought back to Game 6 against Boston in 2012, before he had won a title, how they were down 3-2 going into Boston, and he just came out and dominated that game from start to finish with 45 points, 15 rebounds. And understanding that LeBron knows how important this game would be to his legacy, and as a player who's kind of always seemed aware of what his legacy is and where he stands in the game amongst the legends, he's one of the all-time great players, and all-time great players respond similar to the way he did tonight. So I really didn't see a slippage for him.
I think a lot of people are going to bring up that Boston game that you brought up, just because the numbers are so similar and LeBron took over the game in such a way that he did in that. Bart, my question for you would be, do you think this is better than the Boston game, or similar to the Boston game, or worse than the Boston game?
My initial thought would be that it's better just because the stage is bigger. We're talking about the NBA Finals compared to the Eastern Conference Finals, and a closeout game that's 3-1 as opposed to 3-2. When you're heading into that 3-2 game, you have that ability to have in the back of your head, hey, we've got Game 7 at home. We got to go all out here to have that advantage next time. But when you look at what LeBron did on Monday night, it was just from the beginning, he wasn't, as Peach said, he wasn't going to have another game where people questioned his assertiveness, his desire to take over. And then I'm one of those people. You can listen back to the podcast. I just didn't understand LeBron's passiveness. There's a line for him between trying to get teammates involved and just not doing it himself when he can. And tonight he played that perfectly. And the stats show it, and then the win showed it.
You're definitely not alone in the LeBron criticism of being too passive. I know in conversations that he's had with Peach, we were all over LeBron for being too passive. Just it looks like he can drive to the hoop whenever he wants, and then he'll just kick it out like he doesn't want to score. And I think that changed tonight because of the injury to Bogut and Draymond Green not being there. But even LeBron had his outside shot working for, I don't know, the best time since his last time in Cleveland, the first run he was there. I don't think we've ever seen LeBron shoot like this since Miami or this run in Cleveland.
For sure, and the Warriors were telling LeBron with how they played that they were going to live with how he came into the game shooting. They went under all of the screens that the Cavaliers were setting for LeBron, and were basically daring him to shoot that 19 to 17-foot shot that had just kind of been lost from his game. And then when he starts hitting those, and you have to come up on him and try to go over screens, then you're asking the best athlete in the world to beat you off the dribble, and he's going to do it 9 times out of 10.
Peach, do you remember a time LeBron shot this well?
The only time I could think of LeBron shooting this well was in Miami. I think the first year he had won the MVP when he was with Miami. I think he got his three-point percentage up to around 40%, maybe a little above 40%. But that was the most confident he was in his shot. But that's because he wasn't relying on his jump shot. He was killing it in the post game and driving to the basket, and then that opened up his three-point shot where they kind of sagged off him, and that was probably the most complete LeBron that we've seen as a player. And going back to my thoughts on better performance, I'd have to agree with Wang on this and say Game 6 against Boston was a bigger performance. I pulled up the box score here, and in that Game 6, LeBron scored the 45 and 15, as we know. The next highest score for the Heat at the time was 17 from Dwayne Wade. And Dwayne Wade did that on 6 for 17 shooting. So it's not like he was as explosive or as dynamic as Kyrie was tonight. So I think tonight, having Kyrie score 41 points shooting over 70% from the field when he was just hitting just about everything he threw up at the basket, it seems that Miami game in Boston seemed like LeBron's 45 and 15 were a lot more important to the team at that point than they were tonight. Not that LeBron's game tonight was any worse. It's just in terms of significance and the fact that LeBron had such a poor NBA Finals the year before. There were a lot of talk of LeBron just being a big choker and that if they lose this game, then he would never be considered one of the best players. And responding from that deficit, I think is just a lot larger. But we'll see. Maybe this Game 5 win tonight springboards Cleveland into some more wins, and we'll see how the end of the series plays out.
I saw it. They showed the opening line on Scott Van Pelt's Sports Center that I was watching. The Cavaliers open at a 2.5-point favorite in Game 6, which I thought was pretty surprising. I don't see how the Cavs, maybe because they're at home and it's the NBA Finals, and because they played so well, but I don't see how the Cavs can be favored in Game 6.
I as a gambling man myself, that is a line to entice the overreactionary public that is like, oh wait, the Cavs just beat the Warriors at home. They're definitely going to win Game 6. That aren't exactly considering the fact that the Cavaliers shot 53% and got ungodly performances from two of the top, 10 scorers in the league. I mean, Kyrie's not a top 10 player, but he's a top 10 scorer for sure. And then LeBron's LeBron. So I think that's where you're kind of seeing some of that quick reaction to making Cleveland the favorite. But Wayne, I want to get to something that is just unfortunate for the timing with our last podcast, but Draymond Green's suspension totally turned this game on its head. And that's not to take away the performances of LeBron and Kyrie, because they outplayed everybody and the Cavaliers deserve to win tonight. But I don't think any Cavs fan that's thinking in their right mind would admit that they would be getting to the hole at will like they were tonight if a guy that's like Draymond Green, who can rotate over faster than Bogut, Ezeli, or Spates, the other Warrior centers, they can get over there twice as fast and at least make the shot more difficult than some of these layups that LeBron and Kyrie are getting.
I don't think the Warriors would necessarily have won tonight's game had Draymond Green been playing, but the Cavs aren't getting a 15-point win if Draymond Green's playing. Just you hit the nail on the head. The way his defense is, and people underestimate what Draymond Green does for the offense. He can get offensive rebounds. He's a very gifted passer for his size, and he can hit the outside shot like the rest of the Warriors. So he can space the floor extremely well as well.
Peaches, if we stop like that, just go ahead, man. Jump in.
You
Okay.
need to podcast better, man.
I'm working on it. Okay, to go
We'll
off
get
your
there.
point, Wang, I don't think the general basketball public and even some people that watch NBA a lot understand what Draymond Green does for the Golden State Warriors. He's their emotional leader, gets everybody fired up. And yes, at home, a lot of people thought the energy of the crowd would help them recapture that and replace that. But if Steph Curry being the MVP of the team is definitely the offensive MVP, Draymond Green is just as important defensively with the way he can guard multiple positions, the way he can, just talks and talks and talks and gets people in the right positions, and the energy he brings. Everybody else feeds off of that. He's the source of their confidence, their swagger, everything they've done in their 73 wins this year. He's been the catalyst for all of that. Even when Steph Curry had to miss a couple games, Draymond Green was right there to pick up the energy. When Clay or Steph may not have been having the best game, Draymond brought his energy up, got rebounds, got steals, scored baskets whenever they needed them.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, Peaches. I thought something was amazing to see that Draymond Green was the only player on the Warriors that had played in all, 88 of their wins so far. And now without Draymond Green, they are 0-2 this season.
Right, and I agree with that.
That
It
is
just, it totally,
It's
Oh,
a
and-
crazy stat.
Yep, 0-2, still being a small sample size, but still just speaks to how incredibly important he is to their team. And Steve Kerr knows it, Curry knows it, Thompson knows it, everybody on that team understands how important he is.
definitely. And to a point that I made to one of our other big man friends who will soon be on the podcast, I'm sure. I was talking to Steve Tyler about just this game overall, not having Green and having these ungodly performances from Kyrie and LeBron, all that included, in the Warriors going ice cold in the middle of the third quarter. It wasn't until the middle of the fourth that the Cavaliers really pulled away and put the stamp on it and took it home. Now, granted, they had the momentum all second half. There's no denying that, and they had everything going their way. But it wasn't until I'd say probably 6 minutes left, that the Warriors were finally like, we don't have it tonight, or we can't, shoot our way out of this right now.
Yeah, the Cavs only had a 1-point lead with 6 minutes and 39 seconds left in the fourth quarter.
Wow.
Another- I know
for
we keep talking about LeBron a lot, but one of the crazier stats that I saw about tonight's game is this was the first time a LeBron James team has won a game in his career with his team down 3-1 in a series.
I think that's more of a sample size of him being down 3-1 doesn't happen very often.
That's a fair point.
So what the times I think that there were, the 13 Spurs, or no, excuse me, 14 Spurs, and they were in San Antonio and they just got the lights shot out of them, and a couple other times just he didn't have as good of a team.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, with LeBron not really facing 3-1 deficits all that often, with him never having a first-round exit and, almost always being competitive in series, save for the couple series against the Spurs when he took him to the finals when he was, just 23, 24 years old. He was about our age, and he was leading them to the NBA Finals, to a Spurs team that was just much more talented than anybody else they had. And the last time they lost to the Spurs in his last year in Miami, when they just shot lights out, LeBron still showed up in that Game 5, but it was just all around a better team that Spurs were that beat him that year.
Do either of you two think the Andrew Bogut injury is going to affect Game 6?
It'll affect it a little, just off the top, because Bogut usually starts, but then quickly heads to the bench. and he can give them much better defensive minutes than against a guy like Mozgov when he occasionally comes in for Cleveland, or sometimes Channing Frye. But I think if you were offering Steve Kerr a trade of, hey, you can't play Draymond Green or Andrew Bogut in Game 6, he'd take Draymond Green every time.
Yeah, I think without question he's going to take Draymond Green over Andrew Bogut. And to be honest, I don't think the Andrew Bogut injury, if he were to miss Game 6, will be that significant to the Warriors. He played 7.5 minutes tonight, and he got injured, I believe, in the third quarter. So in the first half, he played less than half of that first half. And I looked up his numbers. So far through the series, he's a total of minus 25 plus minus when he's on the floor. So he really, and I mean, 21 of those points were in the Game 3 blowout, but save for that, he hasn't really had that huge of an impact. I think the only place it might impact them, or the place it'll impact them the most, will be on the rebounding. With Tristan Thompson will be able to just attack the boards, even if Draymond Green's in there. They might play Festus Ezeli a little more, but he's been very spotty, and his minutes have been up and down throughout these playoffs. I think that might be the only way it works, but the best lineup the Warriors have been able to put out this year has been without Bogut. It's been with Iguodala, Barnes, Thompson, Curry, and Draymond Green running center and just kind of wreaking havoc.
I don't think the injury will help the Warriors by any means, but I agree with you guys. I don't think it hurts them in any way, because they do have Varejao that they can throw in. They have Ezeli, and they even play Draymond Green at the 5 sometimes. But if they play Draymond Green at the 5, he's going to get thrown around by Tristan Thompson, I think, like exactly what happened in Game 3, where Tristan Thompson only had, I think, 13 rebounds in that game, but a lot of them were offensive, when just led to a lot of second chance points for the Cavs.
I hear you there, and there's a point to be made for what Tristan Thompson does to the Warriors' rotation, because Tristan Thompson's just too quick for guys like Ezeli and Mo Space to guard on a consistent basis, so it forces Draymond Green to stay out longer on the floor. But I just think at a certain point, I'm going to sound like a broken record when we're talking about this game, a Cavs win versus, on Game 3, the other Cavs win of this series. If they shoot a very high percentage, tonight they shot 53% from the field, then yeah, they can hang with anybody, and they're just as good as the Warriors if they're shooting very well. But and combine that with the Warriors shooting poorly at 36% as a team. But when they start averaging out and those numbers get closer to that 45 that both of them usually shoot, it definitely tips the scales towards the Warriors.
I thought the Cavaliers' defense improved in the second half. It was tied at halftime, 61-61, and then the Warriors go on and score 36 points in the second half. They shot 3 for 21 from 3 in the second half, the Warriors did, and I just thought the Cleveland's defense stepped up just a little bit more when they needed them to in the second half and try to prevent those runs. Yes, Thompson was pretty much going insane in the first half with his 26 points, but I felt like they didn't really force the ball to Klay Thompson enough. And I know that Warriors offense isn't predicated on kind of forcing it to guys, but Klay was 6 for 8 on threes in the first half, ended the game at 6 for 11, so he only shot 3 3-point attempts in the second half. I felt like they should have tried to get him going early in the third quarter, when the third quarter is typically when Thompson has, gone off enough. He had a 37-point third quarter once upon a time, and he's typically been their guy right after the halftime to get them going.
One of my bigger takeaways from tonight's game is on the Cavaliers side, and I think tonight solidified that in Cleveland there's a big 2 and not a big 3, because Kevin Love, I don't know if it's just that he's not good anymore or if he just doesn't gel in this Cavaliers offense, but if you want a big 3 combined for 84 points tonight, and LeBron James and Kyrie Irving had 82 of them. So like I said, I don't know what's up with Kevin Love, if he's maybe not fully recovered from his concussion or what's going on, but he's not helping the Cavaliers much.
When you started talking about Kevin Love, I scrolled up on the box score because I thought I legitimately thought he only played like 18, 20 minutes. The man played 33 minutes tonight and attempted only 5 field goals, 3 of them from 3, which he didn't make a single one. I think the biggest issue for Kevin Love with this team is when Kevin Love is his most effective, he's going inside out. He's able to get a couple of baskets near the lane and work on a post guy so that when they start switching a larger defender onto him to slow him down there, he drags him out to the three-point line and starts shooting and starts hitting. That's what he did for most of his career in Minnesota. Obviously on much smaller stakes because they never made the playoffs, but that's kind of how he got to that, upper echelon talent level. Now, on the Cavaliers, he can't post up because that clogs up the lane for LeBron and Kyrie driving, which was, as we saw tonight, is when their offense is the best. So he's basically going to stand in the corner and shoot when he's much more than that, but his offense just can't let him be that.
I think part of the Kevin Love thing tonight was a victim of the moment when Kyrie and LeBron were scoring a lot of one-on-one isolation type of baskets, and kind of the whole team was following that mantra, and Kevin Love just isn't that one-on-one ISO type of player where he can break somebody down, drive by them. Even with a post-up, he needs a good feed and can't just back somebody down for 5 seconds and score. But you're right with that, Bart. He usually got his kicks going, got a couple inside, hit a couple step-in threes from transition, which just hasn't seemed to happen as often in Cleveland. But a lot of the offense tonight was Kyrie breaking down somebody one-on-one, and him and LeBron played incredibly well, so maybe Kevin Love just kind of took that step back thinking, okay, these guys have it rolling, I don't really have to do as much, I'll just play my role, play defense, rebound. He only had 3 rebounds, but with Thompson and LeBron having 31 rebounds combined, there really weren't a whole lot of rebounds to be had for that guy.
What happens in Game 6, Peach?
I see LeBron getting the Cavaliers started out really hot. Similar to they did in Game 3, I think they try to get J.R. Smith involved early, kind of like they did tonight, and hopefully they can keep that to sustain throughout the game. But I think LeBron, maybe not the same level he did tonight, but he'll have that mean attitude. I'm gonna attack the basket, and he's gonna score. It'll remain to be seen if Kyrie can be as hot as he was tonight. But over the last 3 games, Kyrie scored over 30, so you'd have to expect him to show up. I would expect Love to play better at home, and it's weird that we're talking about Kevin Love, a couple-time All-Star, a guy who led the league in rebounding and averaged 26 a game, as playing better at home, when typically you talk about the guys that play better at home are the role players, where you expect your stars play well on the road, and then your role players pick it up. But at this point, it seems Kevin Love is just more or less a glorified role player, and whatever they can get out of him is great. So I would have to say Kevin Love plays better in Game 6, and I think Cleveland comes out pretty hot to start in Game 6.
I know it's very cliche to say, but the first 5 minutes of Game 6 will be the biggest 5 minutes of Cleveland's season. Because if they get off to a slow start against probably the best offense in NBA history, the Warriors will just run away with it. I think the scariest part of this series for Cleveland is that Steph Curry hasn't gone insane yet. I know he scored a pretty big amount of points. I think it was 38 points in Game 4. But he hasn't. It didn't feel like a dominant performance like Steph Curry did so many times in the regular season. And I think Cleveland needs to be scared that dominant performance is coming. Because if it doesn't come in Game 6, it should come in Game 7. And if it doesn't come in Game 7, Steph Curry needs to get ripped to shreds. Because he's gotten a few passes this series where all of a sudden his knee can hurt again, and he's back down to 43%, 57%, whatever number they want to put on it. But I don't understand why Steph Curry keeps getting passes. But in Game 6, I think the Cavs will come out hot. I think J.R. Smith needs to get going. Kevin Love obviously needs to get going because Kyrie Irving and LeBron can try to duplicate what they did tonight, but it's going to be extremely hard, especially if LeBron's outside game isn't where it has been in Game 5. So I do think the Cavs will get a win in Game 6, but I don't think it'll be by 15 points like it was tonight.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think Draymond Green is going to come out playing hard and aggressive and have something to prove with being suspended. I think he's going to be, balls to the walls to start the game and be more under control. Won't be as, flagrant foul-y type of self, but he'll pick it up, and I think that Cleveland's going to have to come out strong, and I think it'll be a very close game, which this game was for pretty much the whole game. The final score was a 15, 17-point game, and it really doesn't seem like it was that wide of a margin until, like the last 5 minutes when they put in all the bench subs. It was very controlled, very even back and forth, but that third quarter was huge for Cleveland tonight.
Did you use the term balls to the wall on purpose when talking about Draymond Green?
No comment.
What do we want to put the over-under on nut shots for Draymond Green in Game 6? I'll put it at a half.
I'll put I'm going to say
that's a solid
under.
number. Yeah, I mean he's gonna make sure that his flailing arms and legs are under control. But to get into a little prediction for Game 6, this is gonna sound like me being a LeBron hater, which I very much am. But I've seen it too many times with him, and he did it a little bit in the second half tonight until Kyrie kind of snapped him out of it. When he hits a couple early jump shots, or he has a game where he has a good shooting night, he falls in love with his jumper because it conserves so much energy for him to not have to go to the rack and take all the contact that he does. I see him coming out, shooting mid-range to three-pointers early, and I don't see him replicating what he did tonight. Just the way he shot this whole season, having one night where he kind of found the stroke, doesn't prove to me that he has it back. He's not a knockdown shooter by any means. I think he's going to come out shooting too much from deep and not getting to the rack. And does he change that later in the game? Maybe. But I think it's going to be he's looking up at the scoreboard and the Warriors are up by 8 or 9 points in the second quarter, and he's like, okay, I've got to change something or else we're going to run out of here.
I agree with your thoughts that he has been a terrible shooter all season. He just kind of fell off the face of the earth with a 3-point percentage. But I'd have to think and believe that LeBron understands that his numbers haven't been great, and that one good shooting performance in a night isn't gonna change all of that. So I think he's probably, I would like to say he's probably gonna attack, which you would expect with like I've talked about with Wang. He's 6'8", 260, and just a bulldozer when he decides to put his head down to the rim. Nobody can stop him. You would question why he would ever settle for a jump shot, but I'd have to think he may try to test some jump shots out once he gets his groove, getting some layups, but it's pretty much more or less a coin flip with LeBron these days.
Well, like we said, Game 6 should be very interesting. Fellas, I think we had a fantastic first friend episode and good three-way action going on.
Definitely.
Nothing wrong with a little
Round of
three-way
applause for
action.
Peaches. Round of applause.
Bart, where can they find Fat Guys and Friends?
Fat Guys and Friends can be emailed. We're going to start with email today. Keeping it old school. They can be emailed at fatguysandfriends@gmail.com. You can find us on the Twitter machine, as Mr. Wang likes to call it.
It's called the Twitter machine.
Fat Guys, N like Nancy, Friends. And then you can find us on Facebook, Fat Guys and Friends. We post all our podcasts there, and then some additional content that we talk about, like the John Cena bringing back the Thugonomics theme song back when he had a feud with The Rock. I watched that today after you posted it. I loved it.
You're welcome. Peach, you want to give out your Twitter handle in case we ever get famous?
Just tag me in the tweet. You'll find me.
That's very lazy. All right. Thanks, everybody.
As I do. Have fun, guys.